Hey folks, this is John Miller, Executive Editor with WB News. We would like to welcome you to Ask the Experts, featuring John Halterman of Beacon Wealth Management. John is the founder, owner, and certified wealth strategist at Beacon Wealth Management. You can find out more at bwmwb.com. And now live from the studios of the Exponent Telegram in Clarksburg, West Virginia, let's Ask the Expert. Welcome to Ask the Expert with Beacon Wealth Management's John Halterman. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that.
Well, you know, we've been talking taxes a little bit, and now we're going to move on to something that's a lot more energetic or positive. And that's, you know, you have a firm belief that anybody can be a millionaire these days with the right habits.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, the American dream is obviously to own your own home, but also, you know, back when I was younger, Elvis was a big deal. You know, I remember that people thought about Elvis as a millionaire, and they thought it was unobtainable. But the reality of it is, today incomes are so high, the thresholds for income are so high, that with the right habits, definitely anybody can become a millionaire. Because I see it, and I call it, you know, and don't get me wrong, $1 million is not worth as much as it was in the Elvis day, but I call it the middle-class millionaire. And we have so many people right here in West Virginia that have between $1 to $10 million, and you wouldn't know it looking at them. And it's not the people that are flashy. I can assure you that.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I'm a big music fan, and Elvis, I'm not as big an Elvis fan as somebody like Mike Carey, who, you know, was a huge Elvis fan. But anyway, I've been to Graceland.
Okay.
I've seen, you know, the lavish lifestyle. Obviously, that's back in the 60s and 70s. Things have changed.
Yeah.
But incomes have changed dramatically as well. So you talked about the right habits. What are the right habits?
Well, I think the very first habit is you got to make your money work for you. You know, there are so many people that I see that are not contributing the max they can to their retirement plan. And that's a big, big mistake because, like, if you're getting matching money, that's free money to you. And free money is coming from your employer by you putting in. And the thing that's cool about the retirement plan is you can invest in stocks, you can invest in real estate, you can invest in things that are going to compound over a 20, 30, and 40-year period. And what I tell people is when you take advantage of compounding, that's a huge, huge deal because there are so many people. I look at the FBI. I have all these clients who husband and wife come to me, and I call them the doolies because they both work there, and they both are middle-class millionaires simply because they had a great 401k match and they took advantage of a 30 to 40-year time frame. And so that's one big, big habit. You know, another habit I tell people is that you can't try to keep up. You know, you can't always look on social media and look and say, oh, you know what, these people dine out all the time. These people go on vacations. I mean, I'm not saying you can't do that. I don't want you to live, you know, in destitute. But what I am wanting you to do is don't just spend money spontaneous because you see someone on the social media. You know, now's not the time to try to keep up with the Kardashians. You know, now's the time to say, okay, let's write this stuff down. You know, like let's write it down, especially big purchases, and write down and say, okay, what do I want and what am I doing to get those things? You know, and another thing is don't nickel and dime yourself to death. I'm amazed how many people go to Starbucks every single day. And, you know, you think, well, what's $6, $7? It's a big deal. You know, that's a couple $100s a month. And imagine if you took that couple $100s a month and compounded that over a course of 30 to 40 years, that in itself at an 8, 10, or 12% earnings is going to make an enormous amount of money. And so nickeling and diming yourself to death is another common thing that people have bad habits. And I tell them, well, you know, that in itself, and not that you don't want to drink coffee occasionally, but I mean, it costs 5 cents, you know, a quarter to make coffee at your house. You can get one of those things and make your own Starbucks, but it's just a dirty habit of going through. Same thing with eating out lunch. You know, I mean, let's face it, we can make a sandwich for $1. And I'm not saying don't go out on special occasions, but just going out to lunch every day and spending $30, $40, and $50, again, that's nickel and diming themselves to death. And so those three habits right there in itself are just easy habits that people can break that can definitely put them in a much, much better position.
Well, I am smiling here because I can't help but to think of Ben Franklin, all things in moderation, you know.
Yeah.
You know, Starbucks occasionally, lunch occasionally, but let's think about the future. You know, one thing, John, we've done a number of these shows, and the one thing we always talk about or come back around to is that it's never too early to get this process started.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I know you've got kids, and you know, advising young people today to start looking ahead and putting money aside. I mean, what's the ideal time? I mean, when should people be looking?
Now. Now is the ideal time, mainly because of compound interest. You know, the biggest factor, even if you're a horrible investor, with compounding, your money is going to grow significantly. I remember when I was in the military, my sergeant came up to me and he said, "Halterman, you want to be a millionaire?" And I was like, of course, I didn't think it was even possible. You know, I was a poor kid from Weston, West Virginia. And he said, if you want to be a millionaire, you better start understanding compound interest. And, you know, and it's a big deal because a lot of times, you know, people aren't educated. And I tell people, you got to understand what is an asset that appreciates versus depreciates. A good example is that too many times when we're younger, we're thinking about, oh, you know, I want to buy a car, I want to buy nice clothes, I want to do this and that. And those are all depreciating assets. And what I tell people is the sooner you can get into assets that appreciate and compound, such as stocks and real estate and 401ks, the quicker you have an opportunity to take advantage of becoming this middle-class millionaire, you know.
And I think, too, I mean, the key thing is young people need to understand is that, you know, you start small. You know, it isn't like you have to be putting away $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month. Get started is the main thing.
Yeah, and I tell people, whatever you can afford, okay? We want to get you to, at minimum, the company match. But whatever you can afford, if you can only afford 3%, as an example, put 3% in this year. Next year, when you get a pay raise, bump it up to 4%, 5%, to eventually you can get it into 10% of your income. If you can get thinking on percentage of income, you're definitely going to put yourself in a position with it being able to have the opportunity to become that millionaire. And so definitely it can happen. It's fully achievable. I've seen it happen with a lot of ordinary people who become millionaires just because of great habits.
So break it down here in 3 quick takeaways. Where do they start? Where do we go from here?
First step is you got to look at where you're putting money. And so if you have an opportunity to get matching money from someone, you definitely got to put it into a retirement plan. Okay, that's step one. Second step is that you got to figure out how much you can to invest today with the intentions that you're going to increase it a little bit at a time so that you can ease into it, you know. And then the third step is make sure that you're putting it into appreciating assets that's going to grow. Because too many times people think, oh, I'll put in my bank account or my savings accounts. Those are considered emergency funds or short-term savings. What we need to be thinking about is assets that have long-term appreciation, which is stocks and real estate. And then the fourth thing I tell people is lifestyle creep. You know, I'm not saying don't go enjoy yourself. Definitely take a couple vacations, drive a decent car. But instead of having, as an example, instead of staying at the Ritz-Carlton every single time, stay at a Marriott resort. Instead of driving that Lamborghini, get you a Honda Accord or a Toyota Camry. I mean, still good cars, you know what I'm saying? But it allows you to keep within your means and allow you to invest to get ahead. Because too many times, people start too late. You know, they'll say, oh, you know, when I get older, I will start putting more money in. But the reality of it is compound interest has an effect on time. And so the younger you can start, no matter what it is, the better off you are. And even if you didn't get started, well, don't wait till tomorrow. Just get started. I mean, getting started is the biggest thing when it comes to making a difference.
Always great information, expert advice from John Halterman, Beacon Wealth Management. Give him a call. Until the next time, have a great day.